Okay, say it again. We're in the Niyaza family volume 20, the Tzurba Rabbanan. We are holding today on page 97, continuing in the halachot of taking care, halachot of personal care on Shabbat. Tonight's shir is dedicated l'refuat shelema of Ima Shalom b'mikra Emma bat Esther. We all know who she is. She's a very special woman, and unfortunately, I believe she had a fall, and she ended up in the hospital. She really needs all the zechutim that we can give her, so she can have a refuah shlema b'karov. So, Be'ezat Hashem, all tonight's learning is dedicated in that zechut. Okay, let us begin. We start talking about applying oil on Shabbat. Okay. So in the Tzurba, the first thing he brings that the number one issue here, or the number one thing we should think about, is the issue of refuah. When you know that on Shabbat we don't do refuah, so to speak, right? We don't do medications, we don't do healing, because of the way they used to make the medications. They would grind. All right, they would grind the vegetables and the herbs and the leaves and this whatever it was in order to make the medicine. Therefore, you couldn't do that. So, in that regard, is there any concern when using oil? Okay, so let's take a look. He brings the Mishnah, Masechah Shabbat, in the 14th parak. One who experiences pain, he's not allowed to smear wine and vinegar. Why? Because that's what the medicine is. Okay, so if it's done for medicinal purposes, even though there's no grinding, it seems to be, you're still not allowed to do it.
Why would he have in-laws? Because it's rough.
He has pains there for whatever reason, whatever pain he has, and they yeah, whatever the pain is, whatever pain, whether it's a skin pain, whether it's a bone, whatever pain is, the medicinal treatment for that, so to speak, in that day would be pouring or smearing wine or vinegar, even though there's no real smearing, so to speak, when it comes. Still, you can't do it, says the Mishnah, because it's medicine. It looks like medicine, even though it's not grinding either. Now, right, it's just liquid. But one may smear oil on them. Sachu et Hashem, and you can put the oil on them. Okay, oil, again, just like the vinegar and the liquid, has no issue of smearing because it's nothing to smear there. It's just the liquid. But what's the difference? Why wine and vinegar I can put there? Why I can put oil? So let's take a look in the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch in source 52 on page 97. And he says, someone who is experiencing pain, he cannot put wine and vinegar on them, but he can spread just oil. And now, here you can understand from the next line, but he cannot put rose oil, okay? Rose oil had medicinal attributes to it, okay? Because then it looks like you're doing refuah, okay? And he's doing refuah, and you can't do refuah on Shabbat. So therefore, you can't use rose oil on Shabbat. Now he writes, if you have this place where you have an abundance of rose oil, and it's not just used for medicinal purposes, meaning people use it all the time, okay? They use it commonly. And they use it afilu b'lo refuah. They don't just use it for medicine, so then it's mutar. Then it's mutar to use it, says the Shulchan Aruch. So we're coming out from the Shulchan Aruch as follows. Oil, again, we just spoke about it, there's no problem with smearing oil, but oil being used that looks like medicine, right? That will not be allowed. Oil that's not being used in a medicinal way would be allowed on Shabbat. So says the Ramah, but what about like us today, so to speak, of Malcolm Shein Noigin L'Sach B'Shemin Kim L'Refuah? We don't in the place where people only spread oil as a medical treatment. Most people are not putting oil on themselves. I mean, back in the day, putting oil was a way of taking care of the skin. Most people today, I mean, At least the people that in my circles, we're not smearing oil onto our bodies. Okay. Right now we're talking about oil, not creams, not lotion, not creams. Oil, stam straight up oil, which is liquidy. Okay. So says the Ramam, if it's a place where no one is spreading oil, then if you're putting oil, that's going to be also. Why? Because then you're doing it only for medicine. The only time they put oil is for medicine. You don't stop put regular oil, so therefore you can't put oil. Okay, so the whole reason why you're allowed to put oil, says the Gemara, says Shulchan Aruch, is because it was commonly done. It wasn't just done for medicine. But if it's done just for medicine, then you can't do it. Okay, the Shmirat Shabbat Kilchatan, the next page, on page 98. And he also says as follows. He says, from Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Shemati, he heard that if spreading prevents itching, meaning he's putting the oil to prevent itching, then it's considered medical treatment, and you can't do it. So if it was a common thing to put oil for pleasure, so to speak, so no, person has enough from putting the oil, that would be allowed. So let's take a look outside the Tzurba for a moment. In the Alka Joseph English edition in volume 3 of Shabbat, he brings down the story of the oil over here. Okay? So he writes as follows. It is permissible for someone to rub oil onto his hands on Shabbat for the physical pleasure of doing so. Guy has pleasure from putting his hands into oil. Okay? Okay. Just a generation or two ago, people's hands were full of oil all the time. You used to go to these places, all the books had oil on them, everything had oil on them. People used to eat with oils and they kept the oil. Okay, so that's one. Or, says the Yalkut Yosef, or to relieve chapped skin if he often indulges in this treatment. Okay? If he's always putting oil on his hands for chapped skin, then he can do it also on Shabbat. Now, if he's not always doing this, then he cannot put. Why? Because then why is he putting it? So if you're doing it often, it doesn't look like a medicinal thing. It's stam a thing you do. It's stam a thing that's done. But if you're not doing it all the time and you're only doing it, like Shlomo Zalman said, you're doing it to stop the itching, to stop the this, then it's definitely medicinal, and then you cannot do with it on Shabbat.
Something practical comes up, like somebody has a sore throat. So if he normally uses mouthwash anyway, now he can gargle mouthwash.
Right. So what we would call healthy food. Okay, the healthy person food. You can have a tea, you can drink vodka, you can put in soup and stuff like this. Even though you're doing it for a medicinal purpose, right? Because now you're not feeling well, you're allowed to do it because it's also what a healthy person would do. That's the smart. If that's something that's done by normal healthy people, you're allowed to do it. Yeah.
But salt water probably not.
Well, it depends. It depends. I don't know how far we look at this versus what people do, what you do. Here in the Alka Joseph, he says if you often indulge, the person often indulges in this treatment of putting oil, so you might be looking at the person as the individual. If this is something that I'm always doing, then if I'm doing it on Shabbat, it's not considered medicinal. So if I'm always gargling and I'm gargling on Shabbat, no problem for sure. Okay.
It's a funny thing. Why should it be based on the person? It's based on people. Meaning to say, let's say, for example, I never drink tea.
Right. Right. So then we go with the people. Right.
Right. No one's going to say no. But what's he saying? Oh, but if this guy's, what are you saying? It's either normal or
I guess some people also have their own regiments of what they do and what's regular for them. Right? Not everybody takes a shower in the morning, and not everybody does this. But that's that guy's regular. Maybe there is some talk on that opinion. Okay. Yeah. Yes, my daughter
had very chapped skin, and I told her, it's very
louder, so I can hear you.
My daughter had a chapped skin,
Right.
so it was very difficult for her. It was hurting her. So I asked him, "What should we do?" He says, "Take regular oil. You didn't differentiate whether it's regularly done. This is because oil is known to be something that you deal with, and therefore he said it was okay."
I hear you, but that's not what he says here. He says if you don't often indulge in it, then you're doing it l'daisa, you're doing it for medicine, and then you shouldn't be allowed to do it. Okay, maybe he meant to say like do it, use it regularly, and then it wouldn't be a problem. Or maybe he means like tell her to get to the kitchen and deal with some oily food, and and then no problemos. Okay, fine.
Rabbi Moshe,
Yeah.
there's a couple of questions on the chat over there.
Questions in the chat. Okay. What if you use oil for massages? Okay. Okay, so oils for massages could be a problem.
You're not allowed to massage on Shabbat.
Right. No, you can't massage very deep massages. Here. Forbidden to massage your body strenuously on Shabbat by rubbing the skin with oil and working on the muscles, since considered a medical treatment. But it is permissible to perform a gentle massage. Okay. So
I'm not a massager.
hold on. Shabbatai, there's too many conversations happening at the same time. I'm getting very confused. Okay. So number one, someone's question was about the massage oil for the massage. Should not be using oil for the massages on Shabbat. Simple massages are fine. Having your children walk on your back or on your legs or something like that, that is all fine. Any strenuous that requires oils and stuff like that would be a problem. Yeah, simple, calm massages, gentle massages is fine. Okay. Then what else? The next question was an oil that is a solid at room temp and melts on the skin and becomes a liquid.
Like butter. That's what he wants to say.
So he's saying that you're going from a solid to a liquid might be an issue. Might be going from one state to another might be an issue. Okay.
Don't they got the food on the refrigerator?
It depends and how far. A solid state from a solid state to a liquid state might be a problem. If it was a semi-solid state to a semi-solid liquid or something like that, that's a different issue. That's not a problem. But a solid state to a semi-solid or to a liquid could be a problem. No, so I would not recommend that.
Your eyes on Shabbos.
What?
Your eyes on Shabbos.
Ice is a different story. We went through ice. Okay, fine. Now, moving on to creams. Creams. What about using creams on Shabbat? Okay, so what's the issue? The issue, we have a malacha of memachek, which is smoothing. What was it done in the Mishkan or for the process of the Mishkan building? What was memachek? So you had the hide, and on the skin of the animal, on the hide, you had hairs, and you had to sand it down to get the hairs out, right? Now, a tolda of memachek is memareach, which is smoothing a semi-solid substance, right? The hide is solid, and a semi-solid will be the issue of memareach. Okay, so for example, the Gemara brings an example: the person who spreads a cream under a bandage, right? Under a bandage onto a wound. So the Gemara says he's chayiv. Right, some sort of oil, some sort of ointment or cream.
The ointment might be a lot.
Okay, so let's take a look. So the question is as follows: what is a cream? What is an ointment? Let's deal with this. What are we doing with this cream or this ointment?
What is ointment? What is cream?
It's a semi-solid substance.
It's the same thing.
It's like waxish. Okay, so how are we using it? So in halacha there might be a kula by the Magen Avraham. The Magen Avraham says that if you're taking the substance, but it's getting completely absorbed, then that's not spreading. Spreading means where I'm leaving a layer on top. So maybe you want to differentiate between ointment and cream is something that goes in and it's completely absorbed versus something that stays on the layer on the top. But in the end of the day, this is the chiluk over here, halacha.
Ointment is the fuah, no?
Can I put ointment? Is the issue with putting ointment, the issue of putting cream would be that you're spreading it and you're spreading it. So the Magen Avraham says spreading is only if you leave a layer on top. If it's completely absorbed into the place you're putting it, then it's not considered spreading because it's nothing spread now. It's all absorbed.
So
I'm not sure about sanitizer.
So mishcha, Vaseline,
Ah,
it's observed.
ah,
It's observed. You put on your hand, after a while, it goes. That's
okay,
it.
so let's take a look. Let's take a look.
And I thought Vaseline is not allowed.
Okay, you're right. It's not. Well, we'll take a look. Okay, Magen Abraham. He writes in source 55, that his intention is for it to spread. But here in this case, he's talking about the spittle. He's wanting it to absorb into the ground. The Mishnah Berurah also rules like this, Magen Abraham, saying that as long as it's completely absorbed, it's not considered mimarech. It's not considered spreading. As was the opinion of Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Take a look in the Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata in source 56 on page 99, and he writes, it's permitted to spread cream, at least for one who is sick. Why? Because it's going to be completely lovely. It's going to be completely absorbed into the flesh. And he heard from Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, said the Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata, the imerech, if he takes it and it dissolves and absorbs into the body of the person, then it's not considered limikrim imerech. It's not considered spreading. Okay. So number one, we have that if a cream ointment is completely absorbed into the skin, that's not considered spreading. Chamovadia in the Bia Omer, he writes, also permits spreading such creams, even for a person who is not sick. Okay. Now there is a Hazon Ish. Okay. The Hazon Ish disagreed with this Magen Abraham. The Hazon Ish disagreed and ruled that this act is forbidden as well. Even if it's completely absorbed into the skin, according to the Hazon Ish, this is still Asur. You heard? This is what he brings down here in the Yalkut Yosef, English edition. He writes, the Hazon Ish disagreed and ruled that this act is forbidden as well, which means even if it gets completely absorbed, it's still forbidden according to the Hazon Ish. So taking now Rav Daniel Nustat on page 99, source number 57.
So according to the Yalkut Yosef is allowed, and according to the Hazon Ish,
We'll see in a minute. Yalkut Yosef is not going to allow it either. He's going to say it's better not to do it this way. We're going to take a look. We're going to take a look. Me'ikar Hadin, the halach is like the Magen Abraham, that when it's completely absorbed, it's not considered spreading. But in deference to the opinions that it's still considered spreading, we're going to recommend you not do it that way if you have another option. So let's take a look right now, 1 second, in source 57 on page 99. Some poskim have the opinion that spreading ointment on the skin is a violation of smoothing, while the poskim are not too concerned about this. Most contemporary poskim follow the more strict view and advise to avoid spreading ointment on the skin on Shabbat. The recommended method of using ointment is to squeeze the ointment from the tube directly onto the affected area. Okay? So, for example, you've learned this when you were told how to change a diaper. Okay? When you change a diaper, suddenly you have to put the diaper rash. So how does everyone put the diaper rash on Shabbat? Right? Desitin. How do you put it?
We dab it.
Well, you dab it.
Dab.
You dab it. You put a few pieces on the baby's skin, right? And then you put the diaper, and the diaper smooths out the rest of it. So that's what he says to do. And the ointment is in the, first of all, well, 1 second. Me squeezing the ointment out of the jar, isn't that memareach too? Am I not spreading it out and changing the substance from one to the other? So he says, no, that's considered just removing it. That's considered taking it out of the tube. I'm not spreading anything out, getting it out of the tube. And then a bandage may then be placed over the ointment, even though this may result in spreading the ointment. It's the same thing if you had to put some sort of disinfectant cream on your finger, you got to cut or whatever it is. So you dab it on, and you put the Band-Aid. You have the diaper, you put the ointment on the baby, and then you put the diaper over the baby. Now, if for some reason, says Rav Daniel, that the above option cannot be used, can't do it. No dabbing, schmabbing, it's not working. I don't have a Band-Aid, I don't have a diaper. I got to put it on there. So then some poskim permit to spread ointment on the skin, provided that all the ointment is absorbed into the skin and nothing remains on the surface. According to this opinion, smoothing applies only when some substance remains on the surface. and is then smoothed down and level. This does not apply when all the ointment is absorbed and nothing remains externally. Okay, so that's the way the halacha is brought down, and is also brought down the Yalkut Yosef like that. He writes, I'm going to read you outside the Tzurba for a moment. He writes, one is allowed to put cream on an infant's skin so that it will become absorbed. It's not memarech. It's not medical treatment. Even if it is medical treatment, you're allowed to do it for an infant. And he writes, nevertheless, it's best to apply the cream on the skin without rubbing it in, just dabbing it on. Since the Hazon Ish ruled that rubbing it in is forbidden act memarech. So that's what the Yalkut Yosef writes over here. And he writes the same thing for someone who is not feeling well, and you're allowed to put some cream on in. Still, you shouldn't absorb it into the skin. Rather, simply apply the ointment on his skin and to refrain from smearing it in, as mentioned above from the Hazon Ish. Okay?
Somebody with dry hands, you're allowed to take the pump and just squeeze it on the thing,
Then wipe it up with the clean.
or that's still refuah.
Yeah, it's still refuah. That's still gonna be a problem.
It's only for kids it's allowed.
It's Chodesh Ein Bo Sakana. Someone who needs it. Chodesh Ein Bo Sakana, a tinuk, someone who needs it, someone who is somewhat of an issue that he really needs it. But someone who's just chapped skin and stuff like that, we're not gonna allow it.
You mentioned antibiotic cream. That's okay.
Right, because if the guy got a cut, right, and you got a cut, when cuts are not clean, the cuts are open, so it's vital to put disinfectant, the cream on it or something. What? Right, the alcohol could be enough. Let's say the guy is more comfortable putting that, you can put it, and then put the bandage over it. Yeah. Okay, so the Pnei Halacha, Rav Melamed, he wants to tell us that this is very true, that there's no memarech when it's completely absorbed, but still, you can't do it for beauty purposes, right? Say if some woman got let's say not necessarily just a woman, but a common example. Say a woman got some sort of cream, and she could completely get it absorbed into the skin, it'll make it glow and stuff like that. He says no, it shouldn't be done this way. Those who use cosmetics cream for pleasure or beauty, he says why? They really don't want it to be completely absorbed. Like the idea is to have the cream remain on the skin. Therefore, it's written by Torah law to apply that cream. So he says the beauty cream is not getting completely absorbed. It's not the way it's used, and therefore it shouldn't be used for beauty purposes like that. I don't know. Cream sheno'ad lahana or yofi. Okay, cream for pleasure or for beauty. I don't know. He writes. Okay. All right. So maybe we're also being he's also being cautious for the Chazon Ish. Like we're going to say. No, so he's saying this is an oil. This is not oil. This is an ointment. This is a cream. That.
What's oil? It's something that gets fully absorbed in the smutter.
Well, oil you can't spread oil. Oil is a liquid. You don't spread it. You're not spreading a liquid. You're only spreading. Yeah, but it's not considered spreading. Memarech is when you have a semi-solid substance. You here you're having liquid. Liquid is a whole different issue. It's not an issue. So then that's not an issue. If it's liquid, it's not an issue.
The problem is, what do we say the problem is that it might be memarech.
Right.
And it's like, I always give an example when you're doing the wall, you do the splattering, right?
Right.
So that's really what we're worried about. And that's not when you do, the mud job, whatever they call it. Compound. You're doing compound. That's really the problem over here. The compounding issue. Am I compounding anything in my skin? Creams, if it's a soft cream that goes in like oil, it's the same exact thing as oil. There's no compounding going on. It totally absorbs.
So it's good or not absorb?
I'm just saying, I don't see the Chazon Ish is not for me. Cream or not, if it ends up being like oil.
The Chazon Ish is saying that, and from what my understanding, the Chazon Ish at least is that he's saying that even though it's going to be completely absorbed, the cream, not the oil. The oil is not a problem. The cream, he's saying, even though it's completely absorbed, until you're absorbing it, you're spreading it. So it is spreading, and therefore, you should be cautious that it's spreading.
There is a cream they put on the face.
So that's the way I understood the Chazon Ish.
To make the face smooth
Okay.
and beautiful, not whole. Okay, so this cream is not really absorbed. It covers the hole. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying?
Okay. So very good. So then that would be Mimarech. All right. Shmir Shabbat Kilchata, source 59. He writes as follows, but we're not even up to the toothbrushing yet, guys. So let's just finish up. Okay. 35. Source 59. Liquid insect repellent. Okay. Can be completely permitted. It's liquid. Liquid is not an issue. Spray. Yam ken mutar. Also, there's no merech. There's no spreading. There's no issue. What about deodorants? Okay, because you see this book, some people didn't know what a deodorant is, so they put pictures. Okay, so so you have on page 101, you have roll-on deodorant. My understanding of this roll-on deodorant in that it's a liquid, okay, and it rolls out with the bowl, but it's no cream inside. It's all liquid. Okay, so it's not a problem. You don't make them anymore. Okay. Spray deodorant, no problem. What about the stick deodorant?
Problem. So
It's spreading.
but you don't leave a foam. You don't leave it's
Again, we don't, even if it's not going to be, even if it's completely absorbed, we still don't do it unless it's like an hour or something like that. Okay. And then the insect repellent spray, again, spray, it's not a problem. Okay.
Would even allow by oil or
The oil, there is no spreading, by the way. Yeah.
So if would allow me to use olive oil to put on my hand.
Yeah. If it's not medicine.
vegetable oil, canola oil.
Yeah. Right. There's no mimarech when it comes to mimarech. Okay. The question is if you can do it nowadays because you're doing it for medicine. You do it every day and you do it on Shabbat, then it's not a problem. Okay. Okay. So you say you can use deodorant spray. The Yalkut Yosef outside the Tzurba for a moment says 1 second. What about putting on the garment after you put on the spray? Spray smells good, and then the spray is going to go onto the garment. We can't perfume garments on Shabbat. So can you do it or not? So he says it's mutar, right? Right. If anything, even though it's an inevitable result, it's a sick ratio, which is permitted in this case. So you can put what? Yeah, from the body to the clothes, so it's not a problem. Right. It's not putting it straight to the clothes.
But to put right on the garment.
That you cannot do. Right. No, you can't put straight onto the garment. No.
Even spray.
Even spray. Okay. Okay. Orchot Shabbat. Abotai, source 60, page 100. Source 60. One may not spread cream due to the prohibition of Memarech. Okay. One needs to use cream, like we said, when it's permitted, when he's a Chodesh B'Sakana or is a Tinok or somewhere you're allowed to use it. You should not spread it at all. Rather, you should place it on the wound and then put the Band-Aid and the diaper or whatever on top of it. Squeezing from the tube is not Memarech. We already spoke about that. Just getting it out. Rubbing one's hands on page 101. Rubbing one's hand with cream designed to prevent dryness and to make skin soft is prohibited. But rubbing one's hand or body with liquid oil is permitted in a place where it's common to rub oil. So here he writes, we're in a place where it's common to rub oil, even not for medicinal purposes. Maybe we can make a, between the Chamavajas where it says the person versus over here where he writes the place.
Shoulder.
He has shoulder pain. Okay, so he has shoulder pain and oils help, right? So he'll be allowed to put the oil. Yeah. Okay. If it's the cream, he can. If he has a pain, it's he can put the cream. Better not to rub it in. Just put it there and let it just stay on top of it. Okay.
He said before that if you rub it in completely, then it's okay. In other words,
Yes, if you need. If Mikardin, if you need to put it in all the way, you could. CBD, what's that? The marijuana thing? It works? Okay. So it's a liquid. What is it? It's liquid. It's oily. It's liquid. It's some derivative of it or something.
It's like the non-addictive part of their marijuana.
Okay, so So Lamaisa as follows. So if it's liquid, it's not a problem. Yeah, oily liquid is not a problem. It's nothing new. Put it up.
גם אם זה היה סתם, הוא אומר לך שישר. אתה תכניס את זה עד הסוף. אל תשאיר את זה פום למעלה.
Okay.
לא אם זה היה משקל.
What type? Page 101. Spreading cream on one's face for beautification is forbidden. Lipstick, blush, also is not allowed. We talked about that last year. We spoke about that last year. Go back on to. You can see it. You can see it on the website. The shir has it in depth. Okay, so we spoke about all those things. Okay, Rabotai. Now comes the real exciting part. And this is brushing teeth on Shabbat. Okay. So brushing teeth on Shabbat. The Tzurba here is going to bring a few of the issues. You have an issue of schita, of squeezing. And he has also the issue of memachek, which is, so the issue of schita is on the toothbrush, right? Taking out the water from the bristles of the brush. We'll deal with that in a minute. Then we have the machek, which is spreading, which would be the issue with the toothpaste. Okay, and then we'll have some issues that he doesn't bring here, but he actually brings it in the footnotes, ancillary issues. So I put out in the chat, I put the Rabbi Aryeh Leibowitz, who is, I believe is the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshivas Rabbeinu Yitzchak Elchanan, and he has from his shul, actually here in North Woodmere, he has a 19-page article on all the issues, possible issues that have to deal with brushing teeth. So we're going to look in the Tzurba, and then we'll look at this to see the add-on issues that he brings as well. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, there is a Gemara, Masechet Shabbat. Okay, so here we have a woman who is in childbirth, and she needs oil. Okay, oil is very medicinal. She needs oil. And they want to bring it to her via Reshut Rabim. So how could they bring it to her? So one of the ideas was that they can put it in the woman's hair. Okay, so apparently the hair absorbs, right? They carry the oil in the hair and bring it. So now the Gemara's question is, what are you doing putting it in the hair? Are you going to bring me another oil in the hair? I have to extract the oil from the hair.
How do you take it out?
It's going to be an issue of schita. Okay? Okay, so we saw that, right? We saw that. We'll see it again. Fine. So here, Rav Yosef, right? Rav Yosef. The Marta ain't schita. You don't have no extraction by hair, right? Because we explained last time that the hair doesn't actually absorb any liquid.
It's like a plastic.
It gets stuck inside between all the hair, and not the hair. The hair itself, you take the hair follicle, right? They take it out. It doesn't absorb anything in it. But since there's so much hair, it's so close to each other, it absorbs within the hair. Okay? So now, Rav Ashi, who does say there is schita by the hair, he says this case is talking about where they took the vessel and they tied it to her hair. So there was a keli of oil and they tied it to her hair. Okay. Anyway, the Rambam, source 62, paskins that there is no schita by hair.
But then they have a problem.
There is no what? That's why they put it in the hair. Right, some sort of shinoi to bring it. Okay.
Clean the hair is no no problem with the hair.
She needs it. So to save her, she's in childbirth. Right, childbirth is a sakana. Right. So in order to save her, if you do some sort of shinoi, it seems to say tie it in the hair. Okay, fine. So the Rambam says there is no squeezing, no issue of squeezing hair. The Magid Mishnah says yes, it's true, but umihu isura eka. There is still an isser, right? It's an isser derabbanan, right? There is no real squeezing when it comes to hair, squeezing out liquid from hair. but it's still Issa Derabanan. It looks like Mechazek, like extraction and stuff like that. So it says the Mishnah Berurah, someone who squeezes here is exempt. Pater Aval Aser. Okay, therefore, someone who dips into a mikvah on Shabbat should be careful not to squeeze out his hair in order to dry it. We already saw all these issues. Okay, so now on using the toothbrush has, for lack of better expression, hair on it. Right? Those bristles are hair. It works like hair. It doesn't necessarily absorb into the bristle itself, right? But the fact that all these bristles are all next to each other, the water goes in there. Okay? And then if you're squeezing it, it comes out. So maybe there's chita when it comes to the toothbrush.
Yeah, but
True, it does, and that's going to be one of the opinions of we're going to see over here in the Seredei Eish. Seredei Eish is Rabbi Chil Yaakov Weinberg. Is a beautiful biography sketch of him on page 104, 105. He learned in Slobodka, then went to Mir. Was a Rav in Lithuania. Then he ended up going to a university in Germany and getting a doctorate. Then he ended up in the Hildesheimer yeshiva in Berlin and took the Torah and Derech Eretz approach that we're very familiar with and very much go with. and then he went to where he ended up in Switzerland, and then he was eventually buried in Eretz Yisrael. So he deals with the toothbrush. He has one of the big tubas on toothbrushes, and he's Mekel, and he says it's fine, and he gives 4 reasons of why it's not schita. Okay, why it's not extraction of liquid from the water. So number 1, he writes, if you take a look in the box in page 103, one does not intend to squeeze liquid out of the toothbrush. And although it will happen inevitably, it is a psik ratio, right? He writes, according to many poskim, not everyone, but many poskim, a psik ratio, the Rabbanon is mutar. Okay? Even though it's going to happen, it's a psik ratio, the Rabbanon, and it's going to be mutar. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach argues with him on this point.
Only the lo nichali, no?
Definitely, when you toothbrush, you want the water squeezing out. You want
Right. So okay, hold on a second. I will say.
Bristles could touch my teeth.
That's okay. Here, I will tell you. Hold on a second. Okay. Here's his first argument. Since the person using the toothbrush has no intention to squeeze the water out, there's no prohibition to do so. Even though we generally forbid unintentional action, right? Tzurba Sedeshin, the Magen Avraham, right? That when the interpretation question is only rabbinic, right? And he doesn't really want it, it's not a problem. Now, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach gets on this, and he says, one may argue the liquid extracted from the toothbrush is, you do want it. You want it extracted in your teeth because it helps you brush the teeth now. That's what Shlomo Zalman Auerbach's refute on this first point of this the Seredei Eish on not a problem of schita. But according to the Seredei Eish, according to Rav Weinberg, you have that it's a derabbanan, secretion derabbanan. You don't really want it, and therefore it is fine. Okay, we saw Shlomo Zalman argue on that. Fine, that's his first thing. Then he says another reason is it's schita is only an issue if one uses the liquid or if one wants to clean the object one is squeezing. Okay, so you have schita, two schitas. You have schita by fruits, right, where you squeeze it where you want the juice. Okay, and then you have another schita is by laundry, lavin, right, where you want to squeeze it in order to clean the item, getting it out. So you don't want the liquid, but you want to clean the item, right? So he wants to say you have neither over here. You don't want the water that's squeezed out, and you are not washing it either. Right? It's not melabin and it's not schita from fruits, and therefore it's not an issue. Again, you can go back by saying you do want to squeeze it out in your mouth, right? Because it helps you, brush your teeth. So that is his second. And again, there are some Zalman Auerbach and others will argue with that.
But it's not really
Now the third.
It's not really a pura of schita when you really squeeze something. Over here you don't. You're just removing. You are removing. You are not squeezing. How can you squeeze your tooth? There's no.
No, not your tooth. You the toothbrush.
What?
The toothbrush.
I mean the toothbrush.
You're
It's
squeezing
not-
the toothbrush.
It's not the material of squeezing.
But what are you
Trying to
saying?
squeeze it.
Because it's here, but it's mechazeh kischita.
No, just
Okay.
removing.
Anyway, what about milaven? What about the squeezing by the garment? So it says the main function involves the absorption of liquid. One would not even violate milaven when using the garment. Clearly, a toothbrush is meant to absorb liquid, and hence there's no issue of milaven with the extraction of that liquid. So if it's meant to absorb that liquid, that garment is meant to absorb, then there's no issue of squeezing it of milaven. Okay. Now the third reason to be makel, and this is Rav Ami brought up, and this is the handle. Okay, this is the handle when it has a yad. Okay, when it has a yad.
The yad already is secondary.
Handle.
The handle is secondary.
Now, why would it having a handle make it permissible? Okay, so what's the reasoning of the Gemara? So the Rishonim have the Rambam maintains that the reason for lease regarding a sponge on a handle is that it's not necessarily for sure going to happen. It's not inevitable. Yeah, he brings from the Rambam, Hilchot Shabbat 22:15. Now, so we're going to see the Ravad says the other way. Hold on a second. Hilchot Shabbat 22:15. That I didn't take a look at it, but that's what he writes as a source. It contains that the reason for lease regarding a sponge on a handle is that it is not inevitable that one will not squeeze liquid. It's not a psik reisha. If this explanation is accepted, like the Rambam, then the toothbrush should not be permissible because you're definitely going to get liquid out. But if you learn like the Ravad, what was the Ravad's reason why a handle, if it has a handle, it's not considered squeezing? What is that? We view the inevitable extraction as if it were being poured from a pot and not being squeezed out. The water coming out, since it's on a handle, is as if you're pouring it out and not squeezing it out, even though it's being squeezed out. But it's viewed as pouring it out. So according to the Ravad's explanation, it would be permissible to use a wet toothbrush as the presence of a handle is sufficient grounds to permit its use. And then this, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach is moida. He says this is a good reason to be makel when it comes to a toothbrush. Okay? The fourth reason by Rav Weinberg is that we have a Gemara, and we saw this Gemara when we dealt with after taking a shower, drying yourself up, that the Chachamim allowed us to use a towel. And the Mefarshim, the Magen Abraham said, what was the reason why they allowed us to use a towel? Well, a towel can come to Schiti, end up squeezing out of the towel. So the Magen Abraham said, because what do you want the people to do? They went into the water, they got to dry themselves off. So you have to let them use a towel. To prohibit drying with the towel would be equivalent to prohibit washing altogether. And it's not feasible to prohibit washing altogether. So therefore the Chachamim let them use the towel. You should be careful with the towel, but they allowed it to be used. So Rabbi Weinberg suggests the same logic applies to brushing teeth. Since many people consider it to be an absolute necessity, right? It would not be feasible to apply the prohibition of schita by here, which we already say it's not real. The Gemara says there is no schita by here, and the Rambam says no schita by here, and we're saying it's pater avalasser, so you will not apply it over here. And on this opinion as well, seems that Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach agrees to this. And Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, based on this, take a look on page 105. The Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, okay, he in a note, on a footnote to the Seder De'esh, he writes that this is the reason to be makel based on these two reasons, the last two reasons of the Seder De'esh. Okay.
I just want to point out that Rambam.
Yeah. What does he say?
It's very good. I mean, I don't know why he won't say it, because there's quite no reason that says it, other than maybe Rashi or like that. What he says is, if it's on a, well, what are we normally worried about? If I'm using something that's on, where I'm going to squeeze it out, physically squeeze it out.
Right.
If it's on a stick or something, I'm not going to physically squeeze it out.
Does that mean that it may not get squeezed out?
No.
Is that what he said?
The way they explain it is that I'm not allowed to use, right, that the way Ashkenazim explain it, this the way the Mishmur goes, is that if it's on a stick, I have to use it very slightly, because if I might do it strong. I don't know how a stick helps with that, versus your hand. But the idea is you can use it with the stick, which goes.
It gives you more and more.
It makes no sense with the Gemara at all. The Gemara itself says you can use the sponge on a stick, and they're like, no, it means if you do really like it makes no sense. The Rambam means to say, if it's on a stick, we're not worried you're going to come and squeeze it out. The Rabbah is not arguing with the Rambam. He's just explaining the Rambam Shita.
Oh, the Rabbah explained the Rambam saying that it's not considered at all Schita, it's considered just pouring it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, he writes over here, you can bypass any potential problems of Schita, even though we saw 4 reasons to be Mekel. 2 of them are some Zaman Orbach agreed with. He says, regardless, you can circumvent any problems with Schita by simply not wetting the toothbrush before using it. Okay? And not rubbing the brush as water runs over it after use. So basically, no water involved with the toothbrush, and then you won't have an issue of Schita. Okay? That's one way to run around. What? Okay, so we didn't deal with the issue of paste now.
No paste.
Now we're just dealing with the toothbrush. Now we come to the issue of the toothpaste. It comes all together, yeah. Each one is a separate problem. Okay, so what would be the issue of the toothpaste? The machik, which means spreading. Okay, so says the Igrot Moshe in Surah 67, regarding cleaning one's teeth and Shabbat Yom Tov with toothpaste, it's obvious that it's forbidden. That's the machik. It's also, says Rav Moshe, it's spreading. You're not allowed to do it. Okay. Now, Rav Soloveitchik, they bring down in the Nefesh Harav that he said his opinion is permitted to use toothpaste. There's no issue in Mareach of spreading, unless one adds a new layer on top of a surface. But here with the toothpaste, it's not placed on the teeth as a smooth layer. And after brushing a few times, the paste has been smoothed out well on the teeth in such a manner that it's not present at all. And this new surface remains only for a few minutes. It is then removed. So it says Rav Soloveitchik, there is no Merech. You're not leaving any layer there. So it's not an issue. Now here he quotes from this article that we have in front of us on page 107. He quotes from Rav Aryeh Leibowitz. And he says the way to get around Memarech is by using liquid toothpaste. Okay, so apparently they have liquid toothpaste. Here, he has a picture of it on page 107, right one. He knew you were going to ask this question. So here is the picture. Apparently, there's liquid toothpaste.
Scope. זה טיידל, קוראים לזה טיידל, בזמנים שלנו קראו לזה טיידל.
Hey, listen to this. Listen to this. Rabbi Leibowitz brings down as follows. Rabbi Leibowitz brings down, Rabbi Soloveitchik was told by a student that toothpaste advertisements claim that toothpaste provides a protective coating that lasts for 24 hours. Okay? So now if you're saying it lasts for 24 hours, it's there. And if it's there, then it's Memarech. So, said Rav Soloveitchik, he said he's not convinced there's any truth to these advertisements. He says it's all phony. It's not true. It's baloney. Nothing is staying on you for 24 hours. And then he said, and even if it was true, it's an invisible layer where it has no substantial halachic worth. So it's an invisible layer that's not counted. Okay?
This liquid toothpaste is meant to be used with a brush or just
No.
And by the way, this is similar to. So you have it. So Chamavadi also goes with this similar idea that there is no spreading. Okay, now the Tzurba doesn't bring this next issue, but Rav Leibowitz does bring this issue, and the issue here is molid or nolad, which we talked about, which was going from one state to the other state, going from solid to liquid, liquid to solid, going from semi-solid to semi-liquid. So the issue of molid, and he writes over here as follows. There's a strict view, Rav Moshe Feinstein, Yitzchak Yaakov Weiss. They don't allow the toothpaste for many reasons, but one of them is because of molid. One brushes with toothpaste, he changes the paste-like substance into a foamy substance, and therefore it's a new entity, and it looks like a melacha. Okay, and therefore you can't do it according to those opinions. Now, the lenient view he brings on over here. The lenient view is that Chamuvadia, and the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Shemitzvah Chanan, Rav Hershel Schachter. What does he say? He says that going from squishy paste to squishy foam is not enough of a change. Okay, it's not really molded. It's not enough. It has to be where you go from solid to liquid, or liquid to solid. It has to be an actual, what's it called, state change of state, and not that.
And also change, you don't keep it.
Okay, Chamavadi wants to say it might be of how you learn Nolid and Molid, how you learn it Sephardic versus Ashkenazim, which would be easier for Sephardim, because we say it's a lot less of an issue, whereas for Ashkenazim will be more. Now, how could you avoid all these issues of Molid, Mimarech, and all these things? By using liquid toothpaste. Okay, so the better thing on Shabbat to have, so maybe it's something we can all do. We can get liquid toothpaste. I'm sure if you go on Amazon, you'll find it. And send us the link.
No, Shai has it in store.
Oh, yeah?
What do you mean?
Come, we'll show it to the group here. So this is the, what is it called, Trident? Okay, so this is the Israeli one. And the American one. You're allowed to use regular toothpaste, but I'm saying it might be a better thing to get liquid.
Fluoride free.
You want to make a bigger picture? Here you have liquid toothpaste. We're not worried about it.
We don't use
Okay.
paste, we use the liquid.
No, the other one I know for sure.
Okay, fine. So those were two issues. You had the issue with the toothpaste, which we said is not issues. If you're worried about it or you want to do something better, you can get liquid toothpaste. The toothbrush, we're saying it's not an issue. And the way to get around the toothbrush schita issue is by not making it wet.
But if it's a liquid one.
It's like a rubber. Yeah. Okay. Now, here in the Tzurba, he doesn't bring these other issues, but since we're all here together, let's take a look at these other issues. Another issue might be Ovdin Dechol, okay, which is you're doing a weekday activity.
Also drinking in Shabbat.
Now, how exactly you define what a weekday activity is not simple, okay? Different poskim have different opinions of how you define what's a weekday activity. In fact, Rabbi Ribiat brought from the Chazon Ish, who said that the halachot of Uvdin Dechol are the province of the poskim and qualified rabbanim of each generation. Meaning there's no set what is an Uvdin Dechol, there's no parameters, it's the poskim will decide what's an Uvdin Dechol. Now, so there are some who will say that someone will say the brushing teeth is an Uvdin Dechol. So what we can go around with that is the Mishnah Berurah when he said, "What about using the brush for the hair?" He said it might be Uvdin Dechol. So what you should do? You should get a separate brush for Shabbat. Okay. So he says that you can get around this by using a separate toothbrush for Shabbat. So then you have no problem of Uvdin Dechol. The lenient view is
How does that help?
what?
How does that help?
My wife has.
It's not Uvdin Dechol anymore. Because I'm using a special Shabbat brush. It's Shabbat now. Okay? Most poskim, when they deal with toothbrushes and stuff, they don't bring this issue of Uvdin Dechol. Hershel Schachter said he doesn't have a clear definition of Uvdin Dechol, but he knows for sure toothbrush is not a problem. So that's what Hershel Schachter said. Okay, so if you want to get, it's nice to have a special toothbrush for Shabbat. Personally, I have a special toothbrush for Shabbat, but not because of Uvdin Dechol issues, because I have a battery-powered toothbrush for the rest of the week. So I have a regular toothbrush for Shabbat. So here's my special toothbrush issues. Yeah.
Because it's the same thing like a person goes to the bathroom. You know, he has to clean here, clean there. Also clean his thing. So it's
I hear you. There's another issue some want to bring up. They want to say some poskim raise the issue about that removing the bristles of the toothbrush while you're brushing.
When was the last time that happened?
Right. So they write that so the hairs of the toothbrush. Yeah, if it comes out, so maybe it's somewhat of an issue. What exactly is the issue? Okay, we'll deal with it. But he writes here, I write where Lewis writes. He says, even if there was once a concern about the bristles becoming attached in the 21st century America, we have nothing to be concerned about the bristles coming off. Okay, so that's no issue. That's out. Okay, the next issue. The next issue of using the toothbrush on Shabbat. This is the issue of hachana. Okay, what is the issue of hachana on a toothbrush?
Brushing Erev Yom Tov into Shabbat, maybe 10 minutes before you might have a problem.
So what he's saying here is, if I brush my teeth on Shabbat, okay, I use liquid toothpaste, I have a special brush, rub, whatever it is.
Okay.
Now, but I use the same toothbrush for the weekday, so it's not a special toothbrush. Okay, I have the same toothbrush. I'm washing it on Shabbat, and now when I'm done, I want to rinse it out. So I'm rinsing it out. Why am I rinsing it out? For the next time it's ready. So I'm doing a hachana.
I don't want something disgusting now.
Okay, you're saying good. Yeah, you're saying good.
I think it's like saying when I flush my toilet.
Now, he writes over here. I will tell you, we have a few minutes left. I want to finish this up. So he says over here, there's a strict view. Because Moshe Feinstein is strict about toothbrushing from everything, from the toothpaste to the toothbrush, and even in achana, he says washing is also a problem afterwards. Interestingly, Chamuvadia, who was makeled by the toothpaste and the toothbrush, and Chametzi and Abba Shaul, they are worried about this hachana, and they tell you it's better not to wash out the toothbrush.
What if I use my wife's if you use mine?
Okay. Now, what is the lenient view? Two apostles to be lenient. Okay. Rosh Hashanah Auerbach says, hachana is only if you're doing something that takes effort. An effortless activity that is a matter of course is something you just always do, and it doesn't take any effort. Then this is not hachana. Even if it's a 10 for after Shabbat, you're not doing anything. You're just running it under the water. There's no effort there. And he allows it. Rabbi Hershel Schachter believes that people generally do not wash off the toothbrushes with the intention of having a clean toothbrush for later use. That's what he was saying. People generally wash their toothbrushes because it's considered unappealing to leave a dirty toothbrush lying around. I heard from Rav Rosner once, he said that you can also say, that's the ending of toothbrushing. It's not my hachana preparing it for the next thing, but the way I end toothbrushing is by running it under the water. So it's not hachana, but rather it's the saif. It's the end of my toothbrushing. Now it's interesting in the Yalkut Yosef, he writes all these reasons on the bottom. He says not to do it. It's better not to.
Everyone always brings down the bleeding. No, it doesn't bring down
No, the Chabal is next. I have one more topic to bring. He writes here in the Yalkut Yosef in the Ara on the bottom, the Chol she'ein hadavar nikar she'oisa came to tzarech hachana, ve'im bezetircha meruba, ve'regilim lasato mibli lechoshev al to'ela shabiselato. Right? There's no isser of hachana. So therefore, technically, he says it's better not to wash out the toothbrush, but if you wash it, it's okay. Okay, the last issue, and we have another 2 minutes, so we'll finish it up. The last issue is that of bleeding. And now, bleeding, if it's a shaykhet, if you consider it's a shaykhet, that's coming an issur of shaykhet, whether it is or not, but if it was shaykhet, it's to be a problem because any amount of blood, it's a problem. If you're saying that it's not shaykhet, but rather it's extraction of blood, so it's a dash, right? So then you need a certain amount to be the problem. However, here is the halakha. With no reason to be concerned, unless you're dealing with a person who would definitely bleed when he brushes. This is someone who doesn't usually brush. He wakes up, Shabbat, I'm going to brush. So he's definitely going to bleed, therefore he cannot brush. But he wants to write over here. He writes over here, even if you have someone who is going to bleed, right? We mentioned the concept of sick rashid lo nichola. He doesn't want to bleed, okay? And it's the Rabbana. it's and the Aruch holds Sikha Rishon Nichele by Rabbanan is mutter. And according to the Rambam, here it's only dash and it's not shaychet, so it has to be an amount. You're not getting that amount, so you can have room to be lenient over here. Anyway, here comes out the four final opinions. You have the lenience of opinions is Rav Yosef Soloveitchik, and Rav Hershel Schachter, that you can use any toothbrush, toothpaste, you wash it before and after, no problem. Kamovadia, you're allowed to use a toothbrush, toothpaste. Better not to rinse it out afterwards, but even that's okay if you have to. Better not to do it. Rav Weinberg, no problem with the toothpaste, but no problem with the toothbrush, but he would recommend using liquid toothpaste. Moshe Feinstein, is on every single front, is not happy with toothbrushing and considers it usher. So we went through the post-game, went through the big ideas with the toothbrushing. So everybody knows what to do now, right? Okay. So better to get liquid soap if possible. Toothbrush seems to be okay. And if you can hold back from rinsing it out, yoter tov. If you can't, there's room to be lenient. Amen. Amen.